There's a plant growing in Canadian gardens right now that can push through concrete, collapse riverbanks, and legally cannot be bought, sold, or grown in multiple provinces. And it's been sold at garden centers for decades. That's number 3 on this list. But before we get there, number 7 is the one that sends people to hospital, and number 11 is the one that most of you probably have growing in your yard right now and have no idea it's regulated. Let's get into it. Number 1, Japanese knotweed. This one tops almost every banned species list in Canada for a reason. Japanese knotweed looks innocent. It has soft heart-shaped leaves, hollow bamboo-like stems, and small creamy white flowers in late summer. Gardeners in the 1800s actually imported it as an ornamental. That was the last good decision anyone made about this plant. Japanese knotweed's root system, called a rhizome, can spread up to 7 meters horizontally underground and grow down 3 meters deep. A fragment the size of your thumbnail can start a new colony. It breaks through asphalt. It breaks through concrete foundations. It has been documented cracking the footings of buildings in the UK, where it's now a legally disclosed defect on property sales, meaning you must tell buyers it's on the land, like disclosing a leaky roof. In Canada, it is federally prohibited under the Plant Protection Act. Selling, transporting, or propagating it is illegal. Ontario lists it as a restricted invasive species under the Invasive Species Act, making it illegal to buy, sell, grow, or trade. British Columbia has it on the provincial noxious weed list. Alberta regulates it provincially. And across the border in the US, it is classified as a federal noxious weed. Once it's established, full chemical eradication typically takes 3 to 5 years of repeated treatment. And if your neighbor has it, the rhizomes do not respect property lines. Number 2, giant hogweed. Giant hogweed does not just look dangerous. It is dangerous. This plant grows up to 5.5 meters tall and roughly the height of a 2-story house, with leaves that can reach 1.5 meters across. It was also introduced as an ornamental, which tells you a lot about what century that decision was made in. Here's the problem. The sap of giant hogweed contains furanocoumarins, chemical compounds that react with ultraviolet light on contact with skin. You brush against a broken stem, the sap gets on your arm, you go outside. The UV activates the compound and the result is second-degree chemical burns, severe blistering, and scarring that can persist for years. The Government of Ontario's own documentation notes that eye contact with the fluid from the plant has been reported to cause temporary and potentially permanent blindness. Giant hogweed is designated a noxious weed under the Weed Control Act in Ontario. It is a provincial noxious weed in British Columbia under the BC Weed Control Act. It is regulated across multiple provinces and is a federal noxious weed in the United States. If you find it on your property, you do not mow it, you do not trim it, you do not burn it. You call your local invasive species council, and you cover every inch of exposed skin before you get near it. Number 3, purple Loosestrife. Here's where it gets interesting. Purple Loosestrife is genuinely beautiful. It's a tall perennial with long, dense spikes of magenta-pink flowers that bloom through summer. It was sold in Canadian garden centers for decades as an ornamental. Some nurseries still sell it, and in several provinces, it is a prohibited noxious weed. Alberta classifies purple Loosestrife as prohibited noxious, meaning it cannot legally be grown, transported, or sold. British Columbia, Manitoba, Prince Edward Island, and Saskatchewan all have regulations on the books, and yet it is still occasionally available through online seed retailers and even some physical garden centers that aren't up to date on provincial rules. The reason it's on banned lists everywhere is volume. A single mature purple loosestrife plant can produce up to 2.7 million seeds per year. It spreads into wetlands and completely overtakes them, forming dense mats of roots that crowd out every native plant in the area, collapsing habitat for birds, fish, and insects. In Manitoba alone, it has overtaken more than 140,000 hectares of land, costing an estimated $19 million a year in management costs. The guaranteed sterile cultivars sold as ornamentals are not sterile. They cross freely with wild purple loosestrife. Buying one and planting it in your garden is the same ecological outcome as releasing the invasive variety directly into a wetland near you. Several provinces decided that wasn't acceptable and made it illegal. Others haven't gotten there yet. Number 4, Phragmites, the invasive kind. This is a tricky one because there are 2 versions of Phragmites, a native North American variety and a European invasive variety, and they look nearly identical to the untrained eye. The European invasive version, Phragmites australis, is on Ontario's prohibited invasive species list, meaning it is illegal to import, possess, transport, or release it anywhere in the province. Invasive Phragmites grows in tightly packed stands up to 5 meters tall in marshes, on lakefronts, and in roadside ditches. It releases toxins into the soil to kill competing plants. It blocks access to shorelines. It destroys wetland habitat. And because it looks so much like the native variety, people routinely plant it thinking they're doing something ecologically responsible. They are not. The CFIA estimates invasive plants broadly cost Canada $2.2 billion per year. Phragmites is one of the primary contributors. Ontario has had formal control programs running at Long Point and Rondeau provincial parks for years, using combined herbicide treatment, cutting, and burning. Number 5. Dog-strangling Vine. The name sounds dramatic. The plant earns it. Dog-strangling vine, both the pale swallowwort and the black swallowwort varieties, is listed as a restricted invasive species under Ontario's Invasive Species Act. It is illegal to buy, sell, grow, trade, or import it in Ontario. The plant twists around native plants and seedlings, pulling them down and blocking light in dense, tangled mats. It has overtaken large sections of southern Ontario, spreading rapidly through both seeds and root fragments. It is resistant to most control methods, and once a colony establishes, clearing it is a years-long project. Dog-strangling vine is still not widely known by most gardeners. It does not look obviously threatening. It's a low vine with small pink flowers, which means it spreads into gardens and goes unidentified long enough to become a serious problem before anyone realizes what they're dealing with. Number 6. Leafy Spurge, federally classified as a prohibited noxious weed under Canada's Seeds Act, regulated in virtually every province. Leafy Spurge releases a milky latex sap from all parts of the plant that causes skin irritation in humans and severe digestive problems in cattle and horses. It forms large colonies through both underground roots and seeds that can eject up to 5 meters from the parent plant. It has reduced biodiversity in rangelands across the prairies and is found in every province except Newfoundland and Labrador. It was introduced to Canada in the 1800s and has been spreading unchecked since. Number 7. Wild parsnip. This one does not get the same press as giant hogweed, but it should, because it is widespread, it looks harmless, and it causes the same type of injury. Wild parsnip has the same phototoxic sap mechanism. The sap activates with UV light on skin contact, causing burns, blistering, and chemical scarring. Unlike giant hogweed, wild parsnip is not 5 meters tall and impossible to miss. It looks like a common yellow-flowered wildflower, growing to about 1.5 meters, common in ditches, fields, and disturbed areas. It is invasive across Canada and the northeastern United States. Wild parsnip is the plant people encounter without knowing what it is and end up in urgent care with burns across their arms or legs. It's not on the same provincial banned lists as the others in the way giant hogweed is regulated, but it is on the federal noxious weed list and is actively managed in multiple provinces. If you're clearing a field or roadside ditch in central or eastern Canada, you need to know what this plant looks like before you touch it. We're halfway through the list, and if this is the kind of content you're into, the stuff most gardening channels just never cover, it would genuinely mean the world if you subscribed, liked, and shared this video. It's the main way this channel keeps growing and keeps making videos like this one. Alright, back to the list. Number 8. Garlic mustard. Garlic mustard is federally regulated under Canada's Weed Seeds Order and is considered a significant invasive in most provinces. It releases chemicals into the soil, a process called allelopathy, that disrupt the mycorrhizal fungi that native tree seedlings depend on to grow. That means it does not just compete with the plants around it, it poisons the soil in a way that prevents the next generation of native trees from establishing. It invades forest understories, trails, and disturbed woodland edges. It spreads rapidly once introduced. And like purple Loosestrife before it, it was at one point available as a garden herb. Number 9. Oriental Bittersweet. A vine with bright orange berries that make it genuinely attractive to look at. It is restricted in Ontario, meaning it cannot be brought into provincial parks or conservation reserves, and cannot be imported or released anywhere in the province. The problem is the same as most vines on this list. It grows fast and wraps around trees, climbing up and overtopping them, blocking light until the tree underneath dies. It spreads through bird-distributed seeds, meaning a single plant can seed a wide area in a season. And because the berries are sold in dried floral arrangements, the seeds have been accidentally distributed through completely legitimate commercial channels for years. Number 10. Scotch Broom. If you are in British Columbia, this one applies directly to you. Scotch Broom is a prohibited noxious weed in BC, listed under the Provincial Weed Control Act. It is an aggressive shrub that invades roadsides, disturbed areas, and open ecosystems across the province. It fixes nitrogen in the soil in a way that changes soil chemistry for other species and creates dense, highly flammable stands of dry material that significantly increase wildfire risk. It was introduced to Vancouver Island in the 1850s as an ornamental hedge plant. It has since spread across most of southern British Columbia and into parts of the Pacific Northwest. Number 11. English ivy. Here's the one that's in the most gardens on this list. English ivy is not federally banned across Canada. But in British Columbia, it is on the provincial invasive species list and is classified as a highly invasive plant actively discouraged and managed by provincial and municipal authorities. Metro Vancouver has designated it an invasive pest. The City of Vancouver has active removal programs running in parks and natural areas, and yet it is still sold in garden centers across the country and provinces where it hasn't made the official list yet. English ivy climbs trees and smothers them, preventing bark respiration and adding enough weight to increase windthrow risk significantly. It forms dense ground cover that crowds out native woodland plants and prevents forest regeneration. It is evergreen, meaning it never stops competing. It thrives in shade. It produces berries that are toxic to humans and many animals, but distributed by birds. And it is one of the most commonly planted ornamental ground covers in Canadian residential gardens. If you are in BC, check your local municipal rules. If you're elsewhere and have it growing, understand that the invasive potential is fully present even if it hasn't been regulated in your province yet. Number 12, yellow flag iris, regulated in British Columbia and Ontario, a wetland plant with yellow flowers that is regularly sold as a pond ornamental. The rhizomes contain a toxin called irisin that is harmful to livestock and can cause skin irritation in humans. More importantly, it spreads aggressively along shorelines, forming dense stands that crowd out native aquatic plants and degrade habitat for waterfowl and fish. It looks exactly like something you would buy at a garden center to put in a backyard pond, which is exactly the problem. Thousands of people in Canada have it growing in their water features right now without any idea it is restricted. Number 13, Himalayan Balsam, an annual plant that reaches 2 meters tall, covered in pink-purple flowers with seed pods that explode when touched, projecting seeds up to 7 meters in all directions. It was introduced as a garden ornamental in the 1800s. It spreads along riverbanks, outcompetes native bankside vegetation, and because it's an annual that dies back in winter, the bare riverbanks it leaves behind are prone to severe erosion during spring flooding. It is listed as a restricted invasive in Ontario and is regulated or considered highly invasive across multiple provinces and U.S. border states. Number 14, spotted knapweed, regulated as a noxious weed in multiple provinces including Alberta, BC, and Manitoba. Spotted knapweed releases allelopathic chemicals from its roots that suppress the growth of surrounding vegetation. The same mechanism as garlic mustard, but in open grassland and range environments. It takes over disturbed ground, roadsides and dry fields, reducing biodiversity and degrading grazing land. Animals generally avoid eating it, which gives it a competitive advantage in any area where native vegetation is grazed. It is widespread across Western Canada and is one of the primary targets of provincial noxious weed management programs. And number 15, baby's breath. Yes, that one. The one in every grocery store bouquet and every dried flower arrangement in the country. Baby's breath, Gypsophila paniculata, is listed as a noxious weed in British Columbia under the Provincial Weed Control Act. In the BC interior, it has escaped gardens and invaded dry grassland ecosystems, outcompeting the native bunch grasses and forbs that these habitats depend on. It is drought tolerant, spreads widely by seed, and is essentially impossible to eradicate once established at scale. It is still legally sold in garden centers across most of Canada. It is still in bouquets in every grocery store, and in the ecosystems of the BC interior, it is a genuine management problem that costs money and resources every year to control. That's your list. 15 plants that are illegal or regulated somewhere in Canada, several of which are sitting in gardens across the country right now with nobody the wiser. The rules vary by province. The ecological impact does not. Know what you're planting. Check your provincial invasive species council before you buy from an unfamiliar catalog or online retailer. And if you find any of these established on your property, contact your local municipality or provincial invasive species body before you try to remove them. Some of them are genuinely dangerous to handle without the right precautions. Now that's it for today. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.